Why hello everybody, and welcome to my channel. If there's one horror series well known by pretty much everybody, it's Friday the 13th. It's one of my personal favorite series of slasher films, right next to the Child's Play series. It uses the most simple of horror concepts. You go to summer camp, you have sex, and you die. I think part of what makes the Friday the 13th series so successful is that it gives the audience exactly what they want. Without a doubt, the Friday the 13th movies know their target demographic better than any other movie series. However, a few of the Friday the 13th movies are very different and took a lot more risk. There's like part 5 where someone is posing as Jason and they're just a faker, or there's like part 7 where there's a girl with telekinetic powers and it's pretty much a Carrie versus Jason type movie. But overall, even with some of those stranger elements, they mostly seem to remain the same kind of movie. That was until Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. This is actually the second time a Friday the 13th film was advertised as the last film in the series. And as you can tell, it was once again a lie. Jason Goes to Hell has a good history of being one of the worst Friday the 13th films. And a lot of that is due to just how completely nuts the film is. The film starts up with a girl leading Jason Voorhees into a trap where he is instantly shot up and blown to pieces by the FBI. His blown up body parts are brought back for inspection, and there's like this really awkward opening credits sequence. But right when you think that after the film had just begun, things are about to wrap up, the man inspecting Jason's body parts picks up his still beating heart and starts to eat it. No explanation, he just eats it. From this point on, it turns into like a body hopping type of horror movie where Jason like transfers his soul into different bodies through this like slug thing that comes out of his mouth. The character by the name of Stephen finds out about everything that's going on, and he tries to warn his love interest, Jessica. Jessica has to use a magic dagger because she is blood related to Jason Voorhees, and only a Voorhees can use the magic dagger to kill Jason Voorhees. So it is pretty obvious that this film is a huge mess. This film happened as a result of a ton of rewrites and no one really knowing how to end the Friday the 13th series. The film wasn't even going to be about Jason originally. It was going to be about Elias Voorhees, Jason Voorhees' brother, who takes him out from the lake, rips his heart out, and eats it, gaining his powers. So therefore, Elias Voorhees, I guess, was supposed to become the new Jason Voorhees. But eventually the idea of Elias Voorhees was scrapped, as all, like, strange ideas usually are, and the film came to be known as what it is today. The film was heavily advertised as being produced by Shaughnessy Cunningham, who is known for directing the original Friday the 13th film, but being a producer on a film a lot of times really doesn't mean much. What New Line Cinema did not want you to know was that it was directed and written by people who were fairly new to their job. The film was directed by Adam Marcus and written by Dean Lowry and Jay Hughley. Both Marcus and Lowry were like straight out of college, and this became their first feature film. Supposedly their idea that they had was to do a completely new kind of film to keep the Friday the 13th formula from getting too old. Supposedly Shaughnessy Cunningham did not even want Jason in the movie. He wanted him out as like much as possible, which is part of why this is barely a Friday the 13th film. Now granted, the 5th film did not star Jason, and the first film like barely had him in it, but, you know, Jason is still a big, like, trademark to the series. How are you gonna put Jason in the title of your movie if the producer didn't even want him in it? Let's talk about Jason himself, played by none other than Kane Hodder. Kane Hodder played Jason from part 7 and up, I believe, and he is, of course, the best part of any Friday the 13th film. I really like the look of him in this movie, too. He's got this more, like, monstrous look to him with the hockey mask kind of, like, seeping into his flesh. And if you can put aside this movie's completely nuts plot, there actually is some really cool effects. This film has some of the most brutal deaths of any Friday the 13th film. I think my favorite was when this girl gets like stabbed from the stomach up and it just slices her in half. There's also a scene that explains like what happens to the bodies after Jason leaves them to go into a new body, and we find out that the bodies melt, and there's this like amazing scene of just a body deteriorating. There's also some really strange uses of the special effects in this movie. There's a scene in which Jason Voorhees turns into a tiny demon and he runs up the vagina of Aaron Gray's dead body. And he does this because if he becomes like one with a Voorhees relative, then he resurrects as Jason himself, like with the hockey mask and everything. I'm pretty sure that the scene was only kept in the unrated cut, because the first time I watched this movie, I did not remember seeing it. Second time, it was definitely there. There's lots of really bizarre things in this film that just don't feel like they have anything to do with the other films in the series. This movie introduces the character of Creighton Duke, who is a bounty hunter who is also an expert on Jason. Why he doesn't show up until the 9th and supposedly final movie? Who knows? The movie also applies a strange set of rules to killing Jason that was like never established earlier at any point in the series. Now Jason can only be killed by a magical dagger, and it has to be used by a Voorhees, and also he can only be resurrected through a Voorhees or something. It's pretty much saying that Jason is a demonic force of some kind, and what I want to know is, was he always a demon, like from the first movie, or was it not till he got resurrected as a zombie in part 6 that he became a demon? Or demon entity? I don't exactly know what he's classified as. The movie actually suffers a lot of the same problems that the Halloween series has. Halloween has that whole thing where in the first film, Michael Myers was like human, we assume, and then by the second film we find out that he's pure evil, and we just have to wonder, like, at what point did Michael Myers become pure evil? And we just kind of have to go with it, because that's how horror series seem to work. The movie also has a lot of like funny things about it that I really appreciate. My favorite thing about this movie is that after Jason's death, there is a diner that has a 2-for-1 burger sale celebrating the death of Jason. And the best part is that they make the hamburger meat like into little hockey mask shapes. I'd also like to mention that pretty much everyone has a gun in this movie. You do not need to know where they got it. All you need to know is they have it, and that is all that matters. Jason's final death in this movie is amazing too. I love the like hands dragging him down to hell. It's so stupid, but as someone who loves like campy horror, I love it. Jason Goes to Hell is also known to have a lot of references to other films of the genre. Most famously is the ending with the Freddy Krueger hand coming up to grab Jason's mask. This would of course ultimately lead to Freddy vs. Jason 10 years later. They also used a jungle gym set piece from The Birds, they used a crate from Creepshow, and the one that caught my attention most is definitely the Necronomicon from The Evil Dead. How did it even get there? No one knows. But supposedly the placement of the Necronomicon in that film has like caused a lot of speculation over the years, and I don't see why not. The truth is though that Sam Raimi was just a cool guy to let Adam Marcus use the prop for his shoot, and that's pretty much it. But it was the Necronomicon that they originally used for The Evil Dead, so that's pretty cool. But that's not to say that a Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash movie was never in the talks, because it definitely was, but it never got off the ground and ended up becoming a comic book instead. I find it kind of funny though that it was considered, because in the first Nightmare on Elm Street, Nancy is watching The Evil Dead on TV, so that would mean that I guess the Evil Dead movie exists in the Evil Dead world. Also, I'm actually pretty glad it didn't happen, because as much as I hate to say it, I'm gonna have to say the Evil Dead series is definitely like high above the Friday the 13th or the Nightmare on Elm Street series. Jason Goes to Hell is without a doubt a terrible Jason movie, but if you look at it as its own thing, it's actually pretty enjoyable. Often as an audience, we kind of like take bad movies for granted, and we don't really appreciate the fact that they exist, and I think just the fact that movies like Jason Goes to Hell exist should be celebrated. It's no masterpiece, but it's a really interesting mess that you can get a ton of entertainment out of. I'll give it a recommendation to fans of horror movies that want something completely outrageous. Time for me to go to hell. Bye.